Boker Tov, Seattle. Erev Tov, Nariya. And welcome to Friends of Israel around the world. My name is Wayne Firestone. I'm the Executive Director of the America-Israel Friendship League. And today our Friends Indeed series continues a really delightful program. We are excited to bring you a photojournalist perspective of the past and the present, maybe a little glimmer for the future, with moments of hope from his world travels with headliners in the United States and in Israel in multiple fields. I'm talking about Shahar Azran, whose photos you have seen in major papers and electronic outlets, as well as at America-Israel Friendship League events and on our website and in our materials. For everybody on this call, whether you're watching on Zoom or on Facebook, we'd love to know where you're calling in from. It's my favorite part of this community building exercise is to see in the chat window people calling in from all sorts of different places and really showing the breadth and the opportunity that we've seized upon to build community, to reach out to people, and to build this sort of virtual community together. For everyone that's joining us live today, you can also feel free to send us your questions to Shahar and throughout the webcast. And we're going to try to get in as many as we can. Shahar is a great conversationalist, and I know he'll be happy to hear from you. I'm seeing people from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm seeing people from Brooklyn, New York. One of my favorite callers from Kuwait, I can almost set my clock by him, has brought in. Modi'in will absolutely be represented as always. So both from Israel and from around the United States and around the world. Yes, Netanya, Philadelphia. We're thrilled to have you all with us. But for everybody on Facebook, my favorite thing to say is you can share this. Just go to your watch party, and suddenly everybody who's just sort of waking up or deciding whether they're going to be sleepless in Seattle gets to decide who of their other friends can join in on this activity in real time. So I want to introduce you to our special friend at AIFL, a colleague, Shahar Azran. He's a New York photographer and media advisor, has been for over 30 years. You're going to get the benefit of that, of covering his coverage of major events internationally, his photographing of world leaders, including 7 American presidents. Shahar's distinguished work worldwide as a photographer comprises diverse areas about our life, including political events, portraiture, professional sports, entertainment, and advertising. Shahar, I think you and I were last together earlier this year, 2 times in Times Square at different times of the year. Once we were standing there looking up at NASDAQ, and that was a lot of fun on NASDAQ Day. And then more recently, we were with a group of our young leaders. I'll give a shout out to our chairs, Jordan Greenblatt and Gabe Gershwitz, who brought together this phenomenal group of people. We were all together at WeWork. And I was thinking about that night and the sort of hopefulness that was in that room. And reading the Sunday New York Times this morning, I'm reading the poll that's asking about 3 big questions. Are you exhausted? Are you angry? And are you hopeful? And as I thought about your collection of over 30 years in this lens of looking at the challenging times through a lens of hope, it reminded me of just how important this is. It's visual. We need to see it. So tell us where you are now and take us on this remarkable journey of people and events and places that you've witnessed and are going to share with us today.
First, thank you so much for having me. I'll start with sharing the screen if you don't mind. I'm in New Jersey right now. I'm in New Jersey, and I really want to go back to my old life 4 months ago, traveling to Europe a few times a month, traveling to Israel every 3 weeks. That's really my goal, is to go back to normal. If anyone knows what is normal anymore, I have no idea, but I want to go back to January and before. So thank you so much for having me today. And I would like to start with telling you a little bit about myself. I was born in Haifa in Israel. The age of 16, 17, I went to photography school. I went to Vista in Haifa. And I started to work in the local newspaper. From there, like any Israeli, I was proudly served the Israeli army for 3 years. Although I was a combat soldier, still I managed to work during the weekend photographing only sports events. And the age of 23, I was assigned by an Israeli newspaper, Hadashot, back then, to be the correspondent, the photography correspondent. Back then, they used to send from Israel to the States a reporter and a photographer. So I moved to New York in the early 90s. And that's it. It was perfect time to move, politically wise. I love to shoot politics, entertainment, and sports. And politics, remember, this is when all the negotiations start. And we had the prime ministers coming almost on a monthly basis, someone from the governments come to the States. So for me, it was a perfect time. It was early in the 90s when I find myself photographing this image. July 25th, 1994, I was working with Rabin. And in the photo, we can see late Prime Minister Rabin, King Hussein of Jordan, and Bill Clinton, President Clinton, in the White House signing the peace accord. If I would say that will be the image for me that I felt the most in my life. I knew that I'm part of history at that moment. I knew, I felt it. We're taking pictures all the time. Some of the meetings are extremely important, but it was all about these 3 men. And I remember years later, I photographed the president many times. And one day I asked him, actually I asked his assistant to ask the president if it's okay, if he can autograph this photo for me. So he took the photo in. 10 minutes later, he came out without a photo, and he told me, well, the president actually would like to see you. I said, okay, that's cool. So I'm going in, and the president said, hi, I'm Bill. I say, hello, Mr. President, I'm Shahar, pleasure to meet you. You took this photo, great. He wrote great photo. And then I remember he put his hand on my shoulder and said, that was one of the best days of my life. And I miss this man so much. And for me, I was so proud to be there. And later he called Hillary and the people over there, and they all were talking about the photo. To be honest, I have no idea what he said after that, but it was a very, 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 very special moment for me. So I worked, as you mentioned, with 7 American presidents. In 2012, I found myself covering Barack Obama's campaign. And this picture I took at the Apollo Theater. It's my second home. We'll talk about the Apollo very soon. But I remember the president backstage, he saw Al Green performing. And he told his advisor, I'm going to sing Al Green right now. And his advisor hold his head and said, Mr. President, please, election time, do not do it. Of course, Obama go on stage in Harlem and sang Al Green. That was a wonderful, wonderful moment. And this photo actually appeared, it was part of the campaign. You could see it in Rolling Stone magazine. Many magazines use that image. In the 90s, again, we have many, many visits from dignitaries from Israel. It's all about the private moments. Prime Minister Netanyahu with Mrs. Netanyahu going to watch a baseball game in Center Park. The kids want to go to the park. So if you count, there are 14 guards around them, and this is how they watched the game. By the way, the photo, as far as I know, is still on their private residence wall. It's still there. And it's really a moment that, for me, to be with the Prime Minister and his kids in such a personal family moment, it was a really, really priceless. One thing that I learned with my photography, that we're talking about trust. When you travel, back then, Shimon Peres was the foreign minister. He's visiting New York, and President Bush speaking about the Iraq War. So before the event, he's going to his room to watch the speech. For me as a photographer, the main thing is to be almost like a fly on the wall. Yes, I want to be over there, but I cannot click until the right moment. And as soon as the president started to speak, Foreign Minister Perez turned around, and for the rest of the speech, this is how he said, like that. And it was a very, very special moment for me. And I got it because the team really trusted me that I will not interfere with the moment. And it will bring me to the entertainment part of my career, which I love, is those quiet moments with celebrities. Paul McCartney, one second, here we go. Paul McCartney, Steinway Pianos in New York. It's a private event, and I'm acting as his photographer. And the same thing, you go to the room, you check each and every piano, like you check which one he wants to play today. And again, those moments, he knows that I'm in the room. He sees the camera, he sees me, he say hi, but that's it. You just let him do his job. And the event was such a special evening. The event was Berry Gordy on the right side, a very, very, very special man. Berry Gordy is from Motown Records. And today there is a Motown museum in Detroit. Paul McCartney went for a visit. And he saw the piano that we see in the back. It's a piano that Jackson 5, James Brown, Sammy Davis Jr., Otis Williams, Temptation, they all play on this piano, and Paul McCartney asked to play on this piano. Berry Gordy said, well, doesn't work. Paul McCartney got into his car and said, you know what, I'm going to restore this piano. 10 months later, and I think $700,000 later, this piano was restored, and they did a very small event with about 60, 70 people at the Steinway in New York, and I was the photographer. If you will see Paul McCartney's face, for him, Berry Gordy is what Paul McCartney is for us. The Beatles' second record, you will find Berry Gordy's song in their record. So it was a very, very special moment for all of us and for Paul McCartney. And I found out about it the day after when Paul McCartney tweeted this photo, and he was kind enough to give me a very, very, very nice credit. One more photo that I would like to share with you on the entertainment world is I traveled with Muhammad Ali. He promoted his daughter's book, and he did a surprise visit, the Soprano set. On the right side, we see James Gandolfini. This is the last episode. They're filming the last episode of the Sopranos. So the funny thing about this picture, as soon as, Gandolfini really had tears in his eyes. Really, he didn't believe that Muhammad Ali is on the set. So he took like a piece of paper and he wrote his email, and he said, would you mind to send me this email, this photo? So of course I have no problem. And I told him, we were joking that he's a celebrity. He said, no, I'm a celebrity. He's a legend. And this is something that I learned later, the difference between a celebrity and a legend. So I'm going back to my studio, and I see like 20 missed calls from HBO. And I said, like, guys, what's going on? I called him. The photos are mine, we're talking about rights. No. Do you have the piece of paper that Mr. Gandolfini gave you? I said, yeah. Well, he actually took the last page of the script of The Soprano and gave me the email and signed, put his email address. So that was pretty cool. Of course, I gave him back. I didn't know, I didn't look at the page, but it was funny. And it for me, to see a celebrity next to a legend, that really, it's for me, this is when I understood the difference between them. So I photographed also some sports events. This is an ad that I did for a sports company with Messi. I photographed the U.S. Open, many of them. But for me, being Israeli and being Jewish, The most important events for me is those delegations that I travel with to Auschwitz. 3-4 times a year, I find myself in Auschwitz-Birkenau with different delegation, if it's FIDF or World Jewish Congress or Chelsea Football Club, which they're fighting anti-Semitism dearly. I find myself in Auschwitz. And here with Steven Spielberg, I think it was the 70th anniversary of the liberation. And I just want to mention one thing. If you're planning to visit Auschwitz, try to do it during the winter. Such a different experience. Even during the winter, you try to understand, you try to feel, you cannot. But it's a whole different experience when you travel during the winter to the camps. So, as a New Yorker, I would like, well, New Jersey, but still, I'll call myself, I still, call myself New Yorker. That's a different story. I want to talk about a little bit about the difference between, I was here in 2001, in 9/11. And I would like to talk about the difference between then and today. In 9/11, we really thought it's the end of the world. I was in Queens. I was in a photo shoot in Queens, and someone said, "Oh, something happened at the World Trade Center. I'm going to the roof with my assistant." And being Israeli, within seconds, I understood that this is a terror attack. This is not a small airplane who got to the building. And people around me didn't understand what's going on. Although 10 years earlier, it was another attack on the World Trade Center, but still people didn't get it. And this is one of the pictures that sum up for me the American experience. They continue with normal life that day. They didn't get what's going on less than 2 miles away from them. So the city was really divided below 14th Street and above 14th Street. Yes, we could smell the smoke, although we're the Upper West Side, I could still smell the smoke. But really, the city was divided. And slowly, it took us weeks to understand that this is a US incident, this is a New York incident, this is a local event. This is not an international event. And I think within a year, everything went back to normal, but really, it was a local event. So yeah, photograph, I have very harsh photos that I'm not planning to share with you all, but it will bring me to today. Today it's different. This is mid-March, 7 p.m., Grand Central in New York. Anyone who visited New York know that this is crazy. The place was empty. And I'm going with my camera, and I see the same frame every day. The city just stopped. Look at Times Square, empty. Times Square is empty. This is 5 p.m., 6 p.m. March in Times Square, and this is really my concern about New York right now, that we don't know where we're going. The bright side is every night, 7 p.m. We all know that 7 p.m. We're all thanking the healthcare personnel, and this is outside. This picture I took. Look at her eyes. This is a nurse, Lenox Hill Hospital, Upper East Side, 7 p.m. Every night, hundreds of people gathered and clapping and thanking the doctors, thanking the frontline workers. I try right now with my camera to try to capture some normal life. So I went to Washington Park, people playing chase, actually normal. What is normal today? I went to the train to take some pictures on the train. The train is empty, but still people are trying. They're trying to move forward. Trader Joe's, and while we're photographing those normal life, I found myself going up to Harlem, to my second home, to the Apollo. And the last crisis that we still have it, it was the George Floyd incident. But I want to share with you, I'm optimistic, and I really want to share with you my experience at my second home at the Apollo. It was the early mid-90s. They called me one day and they asked me to take a picture of Tony Bennett. Okay, being Israeli, I had no idea who Tony Bennett is, but that's great. So I'm going to the theater up in Harlem and I'm photographing Tony Bennett. Since then, I'm the house photographer of the Apollo. So the great thing, and I have really endless stories, and I know that we have only an hour. So I would like to share with you a few stories about the Apollo. And
Shahar, yes. let me ask something. As I'm looking at your images, coming from the different 30 years, clearly it's almost hard to know, exactly which date or age things are until you come to pictures with people wearing masks. And then it's very clear that we're in the present tense. And I know with Apollo in particular, this has been a relationship you've had for a very long time. And what about the Apollo would you say draws you back for inspiration during, a particularly difficult period that we're going through as everyone is going through now?
The bright side about the Apollo is that from the mid-90s, when I walked, and again, being Israeli, I never seen the color of the skin. For me, it was just going to another client. And I felt the same way on the other, from the other end. And the people over there really become my second family. Billy Mitchell, a guy, the historian of the Apollo, is a guy that his tuition was paid by James Brown. James Brown walked to the green room. When people walk to the Apollo, they're walking because they want to give back to the community. When Jay-Z performed at the Apollo, or Alicia Keys, or Aretha, anyone played the Apollo, it's only 1,500 seats. They don't need to play at the Apollo. If Jay-Z want to perform, he can do 5 nights at Madison Square Garden and have 80,000 people, and that's it. He doesn't need those. But this place, everything become different. And it's with Aretha, for example, we had the event that a day before she came. Of course, you're getting all this a conversation with her PR people, marketing. Well, tomorrow Aretha is coming. Don't talk to her. Don't do this. Don't do like. Everybody's scared to death, the diva is coming. And we're back in the green room. And of course, she always asks, where are you from? Israel, by the way, this is the magic word. I love Israel. This is great. When you say Israel, everybody has something to say. And she said, oh, that's great. And she said, I remember that I have my picture on the wall over here. There's a mural at the lobby. I said, yeah, it's still there. And she said, can you show it to me? So, of course. So I found myself walking at the Apollo Theater, Aretha holding my hand, and we got into the mural. So, of course, she made fun how skinny she was and compared to today, blah, blah, blah. And she picked up her pink video camera, and started to film all of us. So that's what, that was a very special moment for me at the Apollo. But this is the Apollo, it's Mariah Carey giving an award to Patti LaBelle, and then Prince stopped by. I want to say hi, and he's giving the award. Really crazy time at the Apollo. The same with Bob Dylan performing at the Apollo. You know, you never know who is going to stop at this house. But I saw the community. We spoke about the community. I saw 40,000 people waiting online one morning to be at James Brown funeral. 40,000 people, 9 hours. I was on stage with James Brown. I didn't sing, nothing, you know, but I was on stage with James Brown at the Apollo for 9 hours. 40,000 people walked. The line was up to 135th Street. And this was a very, very special day because they wanted the community to say thank you to James Brown. So it was a very, very, very hard, you know, days for us. I will tell you something new about 2 years ago when Black Panther, the movie, came out. So the cast of Black Panther, they had a discussion at the Apollo, the whole community. And by the way, many of those events are free, okay? And so I asked the cast, you know what, maybe at the end of the discussion, let's move all the furniture, turn to me, do the Wakanda, and we'll ask the whole audience to do it. So they did it, it was great. We edited the pictures together, you know, and the day after, everybody picked this image, and The Atlantic magazine picked it as Picture of the Year 2018. So that was a very, very, very special moment for me, photography-wise. But I will sum up the Apollo with my favorite person over there, and it's Stevie Wonder. I photographed him many, many times at the Apollo. And only the Apollo, you can find yourself 3 a.m. after party in Harlem, going photographing the DJ, and here is Stevie Wonder take the mic and start to play music, and Spike Lee videotape him, like taping him, and Dougie Fresh in the back. Crazy moments that you really can find only the Apollo. But I want to talk about this moment. This picture is a regular photo, really. It's nothing about photography right now. It's about Stevie Wonder and Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett was the first person who gave the stage to a Black person, to Stevie Wonder, in the 60s. He said that he will perform with me regardless. And he gave the award to Stevie Wonder that night. And Stevie Wonder told him, and I'll quote, "As much as I never see the color of his skin, I'm able to feel the color of his spirit." And you know what? That's for me really sum up the Apollo. Really, I understand that the images during those shoots, the images with Stevie, I realized the power that I have with my lens, the power that, you know, the privilege that I have to cover those stories and to convey those messages.
Shahar, we have a question that came in about essentially the influences on your photographic style and approach. Actually, Joseph from Queens was asking about a particular photojournalist in Tel Aviv, Rudy Weisenstein. He was wondering if you were familiar with his work, and I was wondering, given your global travels, you know, who has influenced you the most? What there was an earlier question about why you even chose to study photojournalism and go to photo school. Can you tell us a little bit about those decisions, and then we could see how that might have impacted on your work over time?
Hi, Queens. So first, like all photographers, we start as journalists with Kappa. That will be the first photographer that we all, you know, looking at. But when you mention an Israeli photographer, I have to say the artists, photographers from Israel, really are the top photographers in the world, really. There are endless names. I don't want to start to rename them, but really endless names of great photographers who comes from Israel. And you see the material that's come from Israel, and you see them around the world. You always look at the name and you recognize the last name, if it's Sinai or it's any other name, you know, you will find you recognize. So I'm very proud to be a part of this group. And I would say, it changed today. I don't have one person that I will say this is the guy that I follow, because one thing about being an Israeli photographer, you photographed everything. Over here in the States, you have a photographer who is specialized in sports, and that's it. Over here, you have a photographer who specializes in news. In Israel, if we like it or not, we do everything. You can start with, a fashion show in the morning, then a funeral, then a sports event, then so we photograph everything. So that's the advantage that we have being Israeli photographers.
Well, that advantage may become a necessity in this current period for a lot of other photographers. But even in looking at this shot on the screen with these two iconic figures, this is really about framing. It's not about understanding entertainment per se. Obviously, there are two icons, but there's a third person there. You've captured something else. Can you tell us about, like from working in different disciplines in the way you have in different subject matters and different parts of the world, what your approach to framing is?
We are the first editors. When let's go to the George Floyd, what's going on right now in America. So there are, I'm the first editor. I'm the editor on site, meaning there are. I can shoot riots. I can shoot a quiet demonstration, protest, and whatever I'm sending to my editor, that's what he has to play with. So right now, this is in Tenafly, New Jersey. This is a protest, Black Lives Matter, and you see the little girl getting water from the police officer. So tomorrow, when you're going to read the paper, and this picture will be, so you will feel, okay, look, it's a quiet, and that's what they did, by the way, in Tenafly. Very quiet protest, they sent the messages, they were speaking, they were, it was really, really interesting. But the very same time I could show you right now 10 pictures of riots breaking, you will feel different about it. And it brings me to something that for me is very important, is anti-Semitism. We all know that anti-Semitism is on the rise. And here is where my role, I was in JFK a few weeks ago, and I photographed a loud flight. Very happy to see, by the way, a loud flying again to Israel. 70% of the passenger were Orthodox Jews. Now, to be honest, between us, 50% were with mask, 50% without mask. So my question is, which picture should I show, with or without the masks? And one more than that, if I need to submit 10 images to my agency, what I'm going to submit? The one with a mask or the one without the mask? And we know exactly if this picture will be tomorrow in one of the papers, we know exactly what's going to happen to anti-Semitism. And this is my responsibility as an Israeli, as a Jew. Really, yeah, this is my opinion. It's fine. The writer write whatever he wants. And I could take, by the way, it could be only one person without a mask. But if I took his picture, that's what my editor is going to see. So this is a significant lesson that I learned through the years, through my photography. But in the last few years, I visited Brooklyn so many times, Borough Park, 770. And there was one photo that I always show to people, and it's this photo. You can see this image every day in Brooklyn. We live together, we do business together, we laugh together, but you will not see this picture in the magazine. You will not see this picture in the newspaper. People don't care about those images. But for me, this is the highlights of Brooklyn for me. To see this, the middle guy is named Michael, walking with two Orthodox guys in Brooklyn. For me personally, I love this photo and I love this moment. I cannot hear you, Wayne.
Sorry, I was going to say, we just got a great question from a mutual friend, Arthur Stark, who is a big fan of yours and has seen your work for many years and in different places. But he's asking a provocative question. With all these famous iconical people that you've been with and photographed, who do you hope to photograph in the future? Who haven't you photographed yet that you'd like to capture at a particular moment in order to bring something new to your portfolio?
Beside his two beautiful grandchildren, let me think. Wow. I knew I shouldn't invite him to this call. Fascinating for me is the Pope, to travel with the Pope, to understand, and I photographed him a few times, but never one-on-one. And for me to be with the Pope is someone today that's trying to bring people together and to understand how a person has so much power, and yes, you can do good things with the power. And for me, is really to spend a week with the Pope will be fascinating as a photographer,
But I know you've done that. You've shared with me some projects that you've worked on that have captured the which you would think of almost as a little story in Israel that might make it into the Hebrew press, and yet you've turned that now into major exhibits at places that aren't necessarily known to be as friendly to little towns in Israel.
Yeah, it's very hard for us to get some good news, to publish good news. There are lots of good news from Israel, to publish good news from Israel. So you're talking about the project that I did with back then, Robert Zinger and Sonia Gomez de Mesquita from the World Jewish Congress. They came to me and they said, look, something happened at the UN. They're giving the floor for 6 months to different countries to present some images. And the Palestinians put images of, they display images of babies that Israeli killed during the last war. So first you look at the images, some babies are from Turkey, some images not from, nothing to do with war, some babies just died in them. Anyway, so they filed a complaint and they took the exhibit down and they told him, look, you have the floor. Go ahead, come in a year with another exhibit about Israel. So we really could take it, both places. We could take it to, hey, let's publish all the damage that the Palestinian did with their, but they came with a great idea. They came with idea, there is an organization called Sasa Satan in Israel, Kavor. And what they did in Israel, like everywhere in the world, there's a mandatory education law for all kids. So if you are, if you are 10 years old, you have to go to school. So we did an exhibit that what they do in the hospitals, they build over 40 schools in Israeli hospitals to educate the kids. So you have schooling in the hospitals. And what's beautiful about it, and by the way, this is already the end, this is the exhibit that we started with Geneva, UNESCO, went to Paris, and then ended in New York, the UN. It's exhibit that you will see there is no Israeli flag over there. There is no anything that mention Israel really big. This is the Human Rights Committee across from the cafeteria, so people crossing. When you get closer to the photos, yes, it says on the bottom, Israel, Beersheba, Nahariya, whatever. But the challenge is in Israel that, and this is what makes our country great, that you have Russian and Ethiopian and Muslims and Christians and Jewish, and you have everything in Israel. So they needed to provide education in all languages. So we thought about the diversity. This is what we're going to show to the world. What Israel do, regardless if you are Jewish or Muslim or over here, this picture. This is for me a very strong image because two Palestinians, girl from Gaza, Malik and Yusra. Unfortunately, one of them, she's not with us anymore. Cancer. 4 months in the hospital. Okay, they are in Beersheba. And this schooling every day, you know, they were there, they were the happiest girls ever. So, you know, I need to ask the parents for a release. And I was a little bit, to be honest, I was a little bit worried asking the mom for a release. I would say less than 30 seconds. She was happy to sign anything that you need. And this is when I'm really, really proud of my country. You will see the kids, you don't see the difference between the kids. And when you put it at you place it in Geneva, and you see the ambassador of Iraq walking by, I say, oh, those great images. Where is this? Israel. Oh, they're doing great thing. And I said, well, can you say it a little bit louder? He said, no. And he ran away. But still, he saw it. And they know, you know, we had so many people came to the opening. And it was really, really, really a great way to show Israel. You see, this is an image you can see only in Israeli hospital, and it look natural. You know, everything is fine. You know, it was important for me to show also this picture. This picture has no name, no location, nothing, because this is a Syrian boy. This is a Syrian boy that getting education in an Israeli hospital is a refugee boy. Now, as of respect, I cannot take his picture because his mom, she's not with him. I cannot ask him for permission. The doctor will not give me permission. He is 15 years old, so I wasn't allowed to take a picture of his face. You know, it's very important to me to show in those images that we are not taking lives. You know, we are saving lives, really. And that was really a very a special moment for me. And you know, I'll go really quick to something that I photographed a few days ago over here about the great thing about Israel and the relationship that we have with the States. This is why we're here today. This is the JVP, the International Cyber Center in New York. So we had the riots down in Soho. Everybody put like those boards, the wood boards. So they invited artists to paint on those boards. Those boards were taken up before yesterday, okay? And the place is open for business again. Those they took all out from also. They took the boards and they're going to do like a beautiful exhibit. They're going to sell it. They're going to donate it. But the fact that this hub opened for business again, I went over there, people working. So this is for me really a bright side to start to see how Israeli can affect New York and really can affect the business in New York. And we really hope that we'll get back to normal, whatever it is.
Shahar, I know you've had this picture in the right place at the right time to capture these kind of historic moments. I was reminded of that. It just got a chat question from our Israel board chairman, the former Israeli ambassador to the United States, Dan Gillerman, who obviously was at a critical moment at the UN, marking the Holocaust Remembrance Resolution being passed. And I'm curious, as you've watched at the UN the period of both hostility and opportunity that you've seen. Are there moments? And first of all, take me back to that moment. You know, when with Ambassador Gillerman, when his tenure at the United Nations, and what you've seen, through this period. Then I want to come back to this photo as well.
And he will correct me. I think we're talking about January 27th. That's the date. That I think that's the day, the Holocaust Day, International Holocaust Day. And I think I still have at home the stamps that they made that day. It was a very special day for us, but you don't know if this day will come real or not. If they're gonna do it, is it a photo op or it's real? And I can tell you it's real. Every year, January 27 in the UN, every year, they marking that day. And it was very important, and you talk about going to this hostile place. I remember Gilman talking about his bulletproof vest, when he go to this building. But what I saw also with Gilman is when he walked, when the camera is off, on the second floor, you're not allowed to use your cameras at the UN. I saw him sitting with ambassadors that I don't think I'm allowed to say on camera, laughing with them, talking to them, discussing with them. And that's exactly why we needed people like him at the UN, conducting those conversations. At the end of the day, we're all people, and this is what we need. And that's the advantage. So many times we criticize the UN as an organization, but people really don't understand what's going on behind the scene. And Gilman, you couldn't walk with him 100 feet without 3 or 4 ambassadors stopping and starting just a 12 minutes, 27 minutes conversation. So it was very hard to walk with him at the UN. But in regard to your questions, I just want to go really quick through a few images that we're talking about a little bit of body language. Over here, President Clinton walking Ehud Barak to Camp David. He knows that the cameras he knows that we are shooting. Okay, so when he put hands on Barak, this is something to show that the connection between the U.S. and Israel, but also, I support it. So it's nothing is by accident. Everything is planned in advance. But at the very same time, when you see, and I think this is Mr. Gilman's home, by the way, when you see Prime Minister Olmert in a private meeting with Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, this is a natural moment. They don't know that we are, I'm the only person over there, but they didn't think about me taking pictures of the moment. And also when you see a picture like that, when you see late Prime Minister Rabin with King Hussein, although they knew their cameras around, they couldn't care less about us. This is a real moment. This is a real moment for us. And this is when I really understand the meaning of precision in this kind of photos. By the way, on the other side, this is President Bush at Annapolis. End of the second term, you really need this photo. You really need this photo with Abu Mazen and Olmert. So you look at the hands. They're holding hands like that, and they gave us the freedom to shoot whatever we want. They walk all day, just take our picture. They needed us. With Rabin, they couldn't care less. They knew that we are in an historical moment. Over here, they needed a press. We were traveling with them all the time. And what I learned also is something that a very quick story with back then Foreign Minister Lieberman, and we are at the State Department with Secretary of State John Kerry, talking to the press. We all know one is left wing, right wing. They talk to the press. They go into the room. The day after, the Israeli paper, a cold meeting between the Israeli and American administration. Wrong. That's what I got backstage. They're hugging each other. They're laughing. The first thing that John Kerry asked Lieberman, how's your family? How's the career? But talk, really personal moment. And they will tell me later that, the bottom line, that, the bond between these two great nations, are unbreakable. And this is what I learned, being as a photographer.
Shahar, we already had some questions on Facebook. We streamed this live to Facebook as well, reflecting on that picture you showed from Soho of the murals. And I know you're walking around all of Manhattan, from the UN to the Apollo uptown and Soho downtown. what images are you seeing now that are speaking to you most about the future and this particular moment that we're in now?
I think when people are starting to take the boards down, you see that the looting and everything was in really very specific place. People put the boards, they put them not because it's already over, they protected the place. And when we will start to see, and we're starting to see, we're being nice to each other right now. There are no tourists over here, it's only us right now in New York. So I feel very strong when I went to Starbucks the other day, and I stand online. And this is something that, like, a month ago, I didn't think that I would stay online anymore in New York City. So yes, 6 feet apart and everything, but you go to the park, people start to leave, you know. So that's my optimistic, you know, those are the images that really bring light to this situation. And I want to say something about the you know, we spoke about the Israel in America, you know, the relationship, and I want to say something about AIFL, if you don't mind. This is after 9/11, AIFL, they have great galas. Every year we go to the Plaza. Back then it was the Pierre Hotel. Great people are coming, you know. If it's this was Mayor Bloomberg, Attorney Generals, Kissinger, you know. Starting the day at Wall Street, opening the bell. But every time that AIFL had a mission, a group, delegation coming from Israel, they stopped at Silverstein, the office, and they were touring the 9/11 site. And for me, doing those tours, and it's a crazy day. Think about it. You open the opening bell, then you have the gala. Took the time to walk, and this guy is Israeli, Michael Arad, is the one who designed the 9/11 memorial, and this is, for me, means everything with AIFL, and you know, when Ariel Sharon came after 9/11, he went to Washington, and he straight came to the gala. To AIFL Gala, and he spoke about the bond between Israel and the U.S. And I couldn't be prouder to go with him, as he was the first international leader to visit the 9/11 site with the mayor. He's the first one who visited. And if we talk about body language, and Israelis, you cannot educate them on body language. They do whatever they want. But look what happened over here. It's nothing to do with Sharon or with Giuliani. It's Israel and America over here. We are here with you. We support you. And I felt this is another image that I can tell you that I felt. And to be honest, I felt it more when I edited the images. Look at Giuliani's face. Look at Sharon's face. This is real. And this is what's beautiful about our relationship. You're quiet again.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm sorry. We had some. There was some noise in the background. Trying to avoid. Shahar, where do we go from here? We've you know, you've covered you know, a 30 years, you've seen adversity, you've seen tragedy, you've seen New York and places in Israel at real low moments, and yet the framing that you chose for this overview today at this moment, and after touring Soho and around Manhattan, seeing people on empty streets, New Yorkers doing what they do, riding on skateboards, creating art in bleak places, Where do you see us at this moment? What are the pictures? What are the moments that are standing out to you?
The next few months, we really have no idea what's going to happen. But we all know that we're going to go back to whatever it's going to be normal very, very soon. The traveling will be different. I was in Israel 3 weeks ago. 12 hours with a mask, wasn't easy, but it was worth every minute. You're in Israel, you're with your kids, 2 weeks of quarantine. But it's going to be over. It's going to be over. We will travel differently, but we will travel. After 9/11, we thought that's it. Who is going to stop us at the airport for 3 hours before a flight? It's not going to happen. And look, it happened, and everything was fine. And we're going to get educated, how to deal with it. But we will deal with it, and we are very lucky to be part of America and part of Israel. Because, I don't want to be, someone asked me, why you're not going on vacation. I said, guys, if something happened to me, there are 2 countries in the world that I want to be in. If something happened to me, either in the US or Israel. And I'm proud of it. I don't want to go to any other country. And I know that this is just a period of time that together we will overcome it.
Shahar, that is really a beautiful moment and a beautiful vision, particularly since you've seen so many beautiful moments over the course of your career. And I couldn't agree more with you that there's something resilient and ever creating in these environments, even at the most tenuous moments that's happening. And it's frankly the thing that we've been exploring over the past several weeks from people's homes, and the sharing that we've seen from their experiences, whether they're yoga masters or they're Zumba masters, or they're looking for a musical moment to take them away, like the 42,000 people who tuned in to see the Israeli opera singing folk songs on Independence Day. So we've learned that people need to be, even if they're quarantined or if they have moments that they can get out of their house to experience civilization, that they need the ability to connect and to be inspired. And that's what, frankly, with the generosity of both American friends and our friends in Israel, our Chaverim, who have given so much from their hearts, so much from their souls, and so much from their professions. We're going to continue this as long as this, continues. Like you said, it won't be a quick ending. And so in the meantime, our Friends and Deeds program will continue every Wednesday and Sunday. This Wednesday, we have a remarkable program that will focus on the economic realities and what actually investing in Israel looks like, with top companies looking for the day when there will be more stability in the markets. And the markets are already looking at what the great next investments are. Many of us know one of those investments in everybody's portfolio needs to be Israel, because it is one of the places that will be stable and that will create opportunities for people looking for them, whether it's artistic or commercial. And by next weekend, we're celebrating independence together. It's going to be in a new and different way. We still probably will have picnic baskets. I don't know where we'll be taking them, but if you tune in next Sunday, you will have a stream from Israel, the Israeli Philharmonic. We are just delighted to be able to share a concert from the Israeli Philharmonic and to continue this series. So everybody have a safe and inspiring week. Thanks for being with us today, and we look forward to continuing this series. Thanks so much, Shahar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll give you the Wakanda, yeah, exactly.
That's the Wakanda, here we go. That's, thank you.